Hi Kava teachers, this is Anita Garza, your K-5 English Language Development Specialist, and the subject of this training is the CELDT teacher training, the California English Language Development Test, and this is part 2. So you should have already done part 1 and now you're back for part 2. And I'm going to be covering basic administration of the CELDT test and best practices. So what we're going to be going over today is what to do before testing, administration of the CELDT, looking over our DFAs, and some grade level specifics. So I have a list here of things that need to be done before testing. So that's kind of our first area that we're going to go over. So before testing, we need to attend the required training, and I'll go over a slide for each one of these. You're going to receive and inventory your materials. You're going to identify students to test, make sure everything matches up, and plan your testing schedule, and then prepare your materials and locations. So this whole area of the what to do before the testing starts with making sure you finished your required training. And this is the same slide as part 1, but again, I want to go over that as Kava teachers, we are required to do the Kava teacher trainings for CELDT. Part 1 you already did. Part 2 you're doing right now, which is talking about the administration and best practices. And then part 3, which will go over test security, bubbling, and returning tests. I'm hoping that you have all gone in and opened up an account, created an account, gone into moodle.celt.org and put in the enrollment key right here. So I just have this again, this information, so that if you're going back and forth, that you remember that this examiner's training on the Moodle site is a required training before you do any testing. Now you're going to receive your materials. Upon receipt of inventory, just verify the quantity and note any missing booklets. Contact myself or Anasia ASAP if there are any discrepancies. So you want to make sure, you want to look at your list of students, you want to make sure that you have the right amount of tests, you have the right amount of initial assessments and annual assessments, you know which are which, and then once you've verified everything, then you want to go ahead and secure your materials until you actually use them for testing by resealing the boxes and storing them in a secure, locked area. This is really important because just like the STAR testing, we are required to secure our testing materials at all times. So it's very important that you take that extra precaution and reseal the boxes and store them in a secure, locked area. So you're identifying your students to be tested. Well, you already received your materials, so you want to know your students already. So your currently identified EL students, according to the class list, will need annual assessments. So you look at your class list at the beginning of the year. Any current EL students already, English learner students, part of Kava's ELD program, will be on your class list. They will be identified that way. You need to do an annual assessment on them. That's how we monitor progress. Myself or Anasia, we will notify you of any new enrollees that need CELDT testing as they are identified based on the home language survey responses. So, I just came in from a Kava teaching position. I know you get the new enrollee. You have a ton of things to do to get that student up to speed. So you will be notified by us if there is a need to do CELDT testing for that new student. So annual assessments, you already know, they're already on your class list. Initial assessments, you will be notified by the Kava office or one of the ELD specialists. We need to take into consideration special education and 504 students. So really, our best practice here is to consult with the SPED teacher so that any required accommodations or modifications are provided. So just like the STAR testing, we want to find out if they have anything on their IEP or their 504 that special accommodations or modifications for testing. And then I'll show you a bubbling specific slide in part 3, but there is a box 22. You will hand bubble that in only if the student actually used an accommodation or modification. So again, just like STAR testing, we only bubble what they actually used, not what was available to them. So this is just great testing teacher practice. We want to prepare our testing locations free from noise and interruptions, good light and ventilation, one proctor for every 20 students in a group, or one-on-one depending on the grade level. A lot of us are going to be in a one-on-one situation because we do not have the big populations of English learners that a lot of the brick and mortar schools do, but one proctor for every 20 students if you do have some group situations. And again, make necessary arrangements for any students with IEPs and 504s that need special accommodations and or modifications. Now here I just have a note about DFAs, directions for administration, and affidavits. Now the CAVA office will mail DFAs with your tests. So please be sure and practice to see how the tests and the DFAs work together before administering the test. So make sure you're not fumbling in the moment and pulling out the DFA and, oh, what are the directions? Please practice and be prepared before you actually meet with that student or the group of students so you know how what test booklets they need, the answer sheets, how everything works together. Because as you'll see in the training, sometimes it's just one book and part of it is flipped open to the student and you're reading part of it, and it could, waste some time if you're not prepared. And then the affidavit, the CAVA office will mail you an affidavit that you must sign and return with the tests. We need a hard copy. So even though by you creating an account and getting into that Moodle CELDT website and doing the training, that kind of started an affidavit that was online, but you must sign and return a hard copy to the CAVA office with the tests, and that will be included as well. Estimated administrative times. Here I just have a little chart that shows an estimation. Again, just like the STAR testing, it varies, but just so you know what to expect. Listening, 20 to 25 minutes depending on the grade level. The speaking area, about 15 minutes. Reading could be up to 50 minutes for the older grades. The K1s, it's going to be quick because it's just it's a one-on-one situation and very minimal reading. Writing, the same thing. You have up to 60 minutes, so you might need 2 sessions for the older grades and up to 20 minutes for K1. So it just depends on your group and and how long and how much time they want to spend on each section. But this just gives you an idea. These are some guidelines for group administration. Again, only if we have a large group. But you need to know that if you're a K2 teacher, K1, all of the tests are individually administered. So you're going to be one-on-one with everyone if they're kindergarten or first grade. Grade 2 needs to be groups 5 or fewer for listening because they have to listen and give a response, so we want them to be able to concentrate. 3 through 12, we can have groups up to 25, but if you have anything over 20, you have to have a second proctor. So we need that one proctor for each 20 students. For reading, 2 through 12, we can have a sensible group size, just remembering the 1 to 20. Writing, grades 2 through 12, sensible group size. And then speaking, everyone is individually administered because this is the time where they're going to actually be speaking and you're going to be evaluating their sentence structure, their command of the English language, etc. And obviously that can't be combined with other students. So preparing our test materials for distribution, this just gives you an overview and you can look back depending on your grade level. Gives you an idea. If you are K1, the K1 have the green color, there's only one answer book per student and that's just it. That's just one big book. Same thing with grade 2, one answer book per student. Grades 3 through 5, there's going to be a test booklet and an answer book per student. And middle school and high school the same way. You're going to have a test book and an answer book per student. So just make sure as you're getting your materials, again, you're looking at how many students and making sure that everything matches up and then letting the ELD specialist know if there are any discrepancies. You need the number 2 pencils. A do not disturb sign would be nice. And then maybe something to cover parts of the test. If you're asking them about a specific 4-picture narrative area, you can cover the rest of the area they don't need to be looking at, just to minimize distraction. Okay, so we're almost at the end here. Just want to go over site scoring. All portions of the CELT must be scored on site for initial identification. So if you have an initial identification student, again, most of these guys are going to be kindergartners because they're the brand new ones coming in. Everyone else should have been identified somewhere else in some other district if they're coming. And of course, if they've been ours, we already identified them and they're just doing an annual. But all initial identification scoring needs to be done on site so that you can then tell Anasia or I how the student did and an overall scoring so that we can get the services started right away. Thank you so much for attending. By now, you should feel comfortable about how to get into the Moodle site, get your listening and speaking training done so you are comfortable with administering and scoring on site, and have a little bit more information about the parts of the CELT and what to do when you get your materials and how to know who you need to test. But of course, as you have questions, please let Anasia or I know. Again, the K-5 teachers, please come to me, and middle school and high school, please go to Anasia, and we are here to help. And here's our information again. Thank you so much for being here today, and I will see you for part 3.